Law enforcement in the early days of California was seriously handicapped by the fact that judges were sometimes only half educated in the law. In this case, the judge's ruling not only set a killer free, but established a dangerous precedent that led to more bloodshed.
Ladies and gents of the jury, I've got my own ideas about the defendant's guilt. But as the counselor pointed out, the state didn't produce a corpus delicti. Oh, that means the body of the victim. And without it, there isn't any conclusive proof that a murder was committed. So, as I see it, you gotta find for the defendant based on the corpus delicti.
The jury's verdict gave a prominent citizen the idea for a perfect crime, and corpus delicti threatened to become a license to murder.
California, California,
the Californians.
California, I've come to live where life is best. In the Golden West, I'm gonna strike it rich in California.
Not very hungry.
Maybe it's this fog.
Fog or no fog. What's better than being outdoors with a pole and a good friend for company?
How many years have we been in business together, Jim?
5.
Made a lot of money, haven't we?
Yeah, we've done very well.
And not a scrap of paper between us.
What's better than a handshake?
That's what's going to make it so easy for me to take over the business.
What do you mean?
You poor, simple-minded man. Don't you know that I hate your guts? Always have. And for all those years, I've been in love with your wife. What's more, she's in love with me, has been for a long time.
What are you saying?
I never forgave you for taking Catherine away from me. And now I'm going to get her back.
Mark, you can't get away with it.
Can't get away with it? Did you ever hear of corpus delicti?
Hey, what is this? We saw you shoot that man.
Well, my friend fell off the rock, and I fired those shots to...
Yeah, well, we also heard what you told him. Come on, this is a citizen's arrest.
These men are lying, Marshal.
Are they? I don't think they are.
Well, even if they were telling the truth, what do you think you could do about it? Did you read about the Collins case?
That's what he's counting on to get out of it, Marshal. He mentioned corpus delicti before he shot Wheeler.
We saw where Wheeler fell in. Let's recover the body.
In the history of San Francisco Bay, they've never recovered a body from that area. Strong riptide there. By now, Wheeler's body is halfway to China. That's what you're counting on, isn't it, Brand? Lock him up. Wilma, Jim Wheeler was murdered.
Jim? Oh, no.
By his partner.
Oh, poor Catherine.
That's right. You know Mrs. Wheeler pretty well, don't you?
We've been friends for years.
You know something? Before he killed him, Fran told Wheeler he was doing it so that he and Mrs. Wheeler could be married.
That's ridiculous.
I'm not so sure.
Well, I am. Catherine loved her husband.
Well, I've got to go break the news to her.
Can I come along?
That's a good idea.
I'll get my things.
Catherine. Wilma.
Oh, this is Marshal Wayne.
How do you do, Marshal? Won't you come in?
So good to see you again, Catherine.
Well, it's wonderful seeing you, Wilma. Such a pleasant surprise having you drop in like this. Please sit down.
Thank you.
Sit down, Marshal.
Mrs. Wheeler, I don't know any way of making this easy.
Yes?
Your husband is dead.
Jim? When? How?
Witnesses say that he was murdered by his partner, Mark Brand.
Mark? Oh, I can't believe it. Well, why would Mark want to kill Jim? They're very good friends. You know that, Wilma. Oh, tell me this isn't true.
According to witnesses, Brand bragged that you promised to marry him after he killed your husband.
I don't believe that Mark would do or say anything like that. It's a lie. Just this morning I saw Jim leave with his best friend. Now you say he's dead, and I have to listen to these horrible insinuations.
Matt, please go. I'll look after her. Go ahead and cry, Catherine.
The prosecution will have an awfully strong case against you, Mr. Brand. The two eyewitnesses are solid citizens and reputable merchants.
It was an accident, Mr. Pitt. I loved Jim. I depended on him.
You don't know what this loss means to me. Now they want to hang me. Will you defend me, Mr. Pitt?
Are you defending Brand?
That's right.
Why?
Because I think he's innocent, that's why. I have reason to believe that those two so-called witnesses are lying.
Are you basing your defense on Judge Norris's Corpus Delicti ruling?
Well, Judge Norris set a precedent, and it's my duty to defend my client.
Don't you think you have a duty to the public?
Once I was an assistant prosecutor in Illinois. I convicted a man against whom the evidence of murder was twice as damning as that against Brand. A month after he was hanged, another man confessed to the crime. It's one of the reasons I came to California. I couldn't stand meeting that man's widow and children on the street. The expressions on their faces still haunt me. That's why I'm going to defend Mark Brand with every resource at my command.
Well, I ain't much of a lawyer, Matt, but I've read as much law as the next man. And I'm sticking to my interpretation of Corpus Delicti till you or somebody else can convince me I'm wrong, which isn't very likely. So, if I'm assigned to the Brand case, and I'm sure I will be, I'll have to instruct the jury same as I did in the Collins case.
Judge, what if we don't charge him with murder? If I hold him, say, as a material witness? I mean, if we don't charge him with anything, he can't ask for a trial, can he?
What are you heading for, Matt?
In that time, I might be able to find the body.
But you know that there's never been a body recovered from that spot, Matt?
But I've got an expert on bay currents working on the case. He says, given time, he's sure he can produce corpus delicti.
Well, that's good thinking. Tell you what I'll do. Dan Reese is assistant prosecutor in charge of the case. I'll have a talk with him, huh? Ever think of trying for the bench, son?
What, me, a judge? I'm not even a lawyer.
Neither am I.
You weren't admitted to the bar?
Admitted, I was the bar. Used to hang around old Judge Hammer's court selling whiskey to him and the jurors and lawyers during recesses. Read all his law books. When he died, all of a sudden, I got his job.
But how?
Oh, I just fixed it with the right people, got myself appointed. That's all there was to it. Simple, isn't it?
Yes, ain't it?
Hello, Marshal. Find poor Wheeler's body yet?
Not yet. That's what you counted on, wasn't it?
I certainly did, in case I got caught. But if I ever get in court, I'll deny it, of course.
While you're in this confiding mood, why'd you tell Wheeler that his wife planned to marry you?
I hated him. I wanted to see him suffer before he died.
You really are a skunk, aren't you?
Yes, I really am. And the beauty of it is I'm going to get away with it, thanks to good old Corpus Delicti. See you at the trial, Marshal.
There isn't going to be any trial. Not for a while, anyway.
What do you mean?
You're being released. But don't leave town. Might need you as a material witness.
I demand a trial, Marshal. That's my right.
Come on. Out.
Oh, Matt, that was a pretty sneaky trick.
Not as sneaky as your client.
think he's innocent. You know, even though you do find a body, I think it'll be of a drowned man and not a murdered one.
We'll see about that.
You know, meanwhile, I resent your having Brand followed every place he goes.
My friend, I'm only doing that so he won't leave town without paying your fee.
How dare you come here?
Catherine, don't tell me you believe those lies about me.
I talked to the two men who saw you kill my husband.
Please listen to me,
I
Catherine.
hate you. I hope they hang you.
He's gone.
Oh, Mark. Mark, darling, I love you so much.
Hey, Marshal, I followed him and he went...
Jensen, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be watching Mark Brand.
Well, that's what I come to tell you about. I followed him. He went to Mrs. Wheeler's place.
She let him in?
Yeah, they talked for a while, and then she slammed the door in his face. I thought that might mean something to you, Marshal.
She slammed the door in his face. Yes, it means something to me. Now, Jensen, I want you to go back there and pick up his trail, and don't leave it until I send somebody to replace you.
All right, Marshal.
The thing that bothers me most is that those men heard you telling Jim we were in love.
If they ever put me on trial, I'll deny it.
But, Mark, when we do get married, people will talk. We'll have to leave San Francisco.
What makes you think I'm going to marry you?
What makes me think what?
Do you suppose I'd marry the kind of woman who helped plan her own husband's murder?
Sometimes a woman will do terrible things for love of a man, even go along with murder. The only thing that keeps it from being unbearable is the thought that you love me. Oh, I beg you, please don't take that away from me. Say you do love me.
I hate you as much as I hated Jim. Him for taking you away from me, you for letting him.
So that's what it was. You can still be charged with murder.
Not unless they find Jim's body, which they won't.
Suppose I decide to tell the truth.
I wouldn't be convicted without a corpus delicti, but you'll keep your mouth closed unless you want to live in the streets. You see, everything Jim had is in my name.
You really did a thorough job.
Now, you behave and keep away from me, and I'll let you keep this place, give you the money to support it. You'll depend on me for your bread. Oh, Matt. Oh, excuse me, please. Well, that expert was right. He figured out where the current might take a body, and that's where we found it, Hunter's Point.
Are you sure it's Wheeler's body?
Well, I'd swear it's the man I saw Mark Brand shoot that day.
I better have Mrs. Wheeler identified. Excuse me, Wilma. Meantime, will you go down to the district attorney's office and tell Dan Reese about
Sure
this?
thing.
Come in, the door is open.
Sorry to disturb you, Mrs. Wheeler.
That's quite all right, Marshal. Won't you sit down?
I'm afraid I'm here on business. They found your husband's body. Would you like to come along with me and identify it?
No.
No. What did Brand say to you that made you slam the door in his face?
Does it matter?
Murderers don't usually visit the widows of the men they kill, Mrs. Wheeler. There must have been something between you two. Where was it?
We planned my husband's murder together.
Why are you telling me this? Will you testify to it?
Yes, I will.
I'm going down to get a man from the district attorney's office. We'll have to have a deposition. You sure you won't change your mind? You'll be incriminating yourself, you know.
I don't care what happens to me. I want to see him hanged.
I told you not to bother me.
They found Jim's body.
Impossible.
What's more, I told Marshal Wayne about my part in the murder.
You what?
Of course, Mark. They can't force a wife to testify against her husband. When do we get married, dear?
This man was dressed like Wheeler. He looked like Wheeler. But it wasn't him. It's a man named John Lang. And yet his widow and two brothers made separate and positive identifications.
Well, the fat's in the fire, man. I've already charged Brand with murder. And corpse or no corpse, we'll have to go ahead with the trial. It'll be before Judge Norris, and if he sticks to his peculiar interpretation of the law of corpus delicti, we'll lose.
Oh, fine. And anybody who has a grudge or a place to bury a body also has a permit to kill. What about Mrs. Wheeler's testimony that she was an accessory to the murder? Doesn't that help our case?
I hope so.
You ready?
What are you doing here? You told me to stick close to Brand. He's in there. Well, you shouldn't have let him go in. He might kill her. If he does, he'll sure cut his honeymoon short. They were married a half an hour ago.
What are you talking about?
The preacher told me. He just left.
Brand married her to keep her from testifying against him.
You should have talked to the preacher before he went in.
You just told me to follow Brand. You didn't say nothing about butting into his romance.
Dan, stay out here. Keep your eye on things. Let's go, Jensen. You're under arrest, Brand.
What's the charge this time? Fishing on Sunday?
Charge is murder.
Good, good. Just what I want.
Take him to jail, Jensen.
Too bad the body they found wasn't Wheeler's, isn't it, Marshal? Be gentle with my bride. My hat?
I know what you're thinking, Marshal, and I don't blame you. Mark and I are sunk deep in the mud. Even if he is acquitted, we'll just sink deeper. But we'll sink together as man and wife. That's all that matters now.
You know, Matt, they're making bets on the verdict. It's 5-1 on acquittal. Open for 2.
You can bet your bottom dollar it's a sure thing, unless Judge Norris goes against his precedent.
3. Well, he likes you, and he listened to you once. Maybe he'll do it again.
2. He might. If I could convince him he's all wet about his interpretation of corpus delicti. But then I'm no lawyer.
4 to see me. You can read, can't you? And Jeremy has an office full of law books.
Would you like to go for a little walk?
Sure.
Help yourself, Matt. You'll find all sorts of opinions, rulings, interpretations, and precedents on corpus delicti in these 20 books.
20?
And here are 10 more explaining what those 20 mean. Good luck.
Well, might as well get at it.
All right.
John Doe versus Richard Roe. Those two birds spend an awful lot of time in court.
The one I hate is Richard. He usually wins, and he's so smug about it. Oh, the more I read, the more confused I get.
So do I.
You know, there must be some clear, simple explanation of what Corpus Delicti is all about.
Well, by the time we find it, Mr. Brand will be dead of old age.
When you want to find out the meaning of a word, where do you usually look, Matt?
Well, then... Well, it couldn't be that simple.
Oh, hello, Matt.
Your Honor, would it be considered contempt of court to call to your attention a point of law?
I'd appreciate it. Pull up a chair. Like I told you, I don't know much about the law. I'm just a judge. Now, I don't believe I need to tell the jury that the state's made out a good, strong case against the defendant. 2 reliable witnesses have testified that Mark Brand committed cold-blooded murder, and their testimony wasn't shaken by cross-examination. But now we come to Counselor Pitt's defense. Corpus Delicti, which he claims means you gotta acquit his client. And that means that the learned defense attorney was talking through his highly educated hat.
Your Honor, I object. I was merely following the precedent set by this court. I was...
Oh, sit down and shut up, Pitt. Nobody's blaming you for the ignorance of this court. Thanks to Marshal Wayne, I found out that I was in error when I instructed a previous jury that you gotta have a body before you can convict a murderer. But he found the real meaning of Corpus Delicti in the one book I never thought of reading on the subject. And here's the gist of it. Corpus Delicti does not mean the body of the victim. It means the body of facts that prove that a crime has been committed. In other words, you don't have to produce a corpse to prove there's been a murder. Just the facts. Now, that means just one thing. If you jurors want to hang Mark Brand on the evidence you heard, it's Jake with me. I think the son of a gun's guilty.
Hear, hear!
Hear, hear!
Don't take it so hard, Jeremy. You'll live. They're only hanging your client.
When I first took the case, I thought he was innocent. Out of which one of my books did you get that ruling on Corpus Delicti you gave the judge?
We found it in a book by Noah Webster.
You mean Daniel? He was the lawyer. Noah wrote the dictionary.
That's where we found it, the dictionary. Anytime you want to refresh your memory, it's listed under C.
California. Oh, I've traveled here, I've traveled there. I guess I've been most everywhere. But I like where I am today, and here is where I'll stay. Now, one thing I just can't endure is being broke and being poor. So I come west to take the cure, and here is where I'll stay. I've come to California, California. There's gold in them there hills in California. I've come to live where life is best, in the golden west. I'm gonna strike it rich in California.